Thank you for joining me. It's Ann Willsie, and I'm going to be talking a little bit about the equipment that I use for plein air painting. So when I go out, this is usually what I have with me. This is my backpack. It's a Sienna backpack, and it's part of a kit that I bought from one of the distributors in Alberta. It's called the Paint Spot. They do carry Sienna products. There's lots of different products out there, but it's very difficult to get anything in Canada, unfortunately. There's a lot more down in the States, and then you have issues with shipping and all the rest of it, duties and taxes and brokerage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up my plein air kit here. And as we go along, if you have any questions, just feel free to ask. I will try to touch on all the things that I'm dealing with, but I might forget a couple, so please ask me. So the first thing you need when you're plein air painting is a hat or a visor, because I can guarantee you're going to be hot and you're going to need something to keep the sun out of your eyes. Sunglasses are not very good because obviously they change the colors of everything around you. So I have an easel a tripod. And the tripod is one that I bought at Amazon. And if anybody's interested in getting more particulars on my equipment, you can always email me afterwards and I can give you more information. So this particular tripod is meant for cameras. The difference with this one is that it's meant to carry a heavier unit on top. So a lot of the tripods that you'll get, the camera tripods, are only rated for 3 to 5 pounds. This one is rated for, I believe, 9 or 10. So it'll hold a lot heavier either camera or the pochade box that I have. So, and it's very sturdy. I can also, if it's really windy, this one, the legs will go out even further. So it just gives it a lot more stability. Wind is one of the issues that you're going to face when you're painting outdoors. Wind is our enemy, as I would say, because if you don't have a good setup and it's not locked down properly, you're going to lose all your equipment, or your painting's going to go on the ground. So I'm going to set up the box, and this is the Sienna pochade box. It came with the, I don't know, what would you call it?
Quick release.
The quick release.
Or quick connect, I guess.
Quick connect. So this is just going to fit right in here. I'll do it this way, sorry. Not so quick. Okay. I'm just going to tighten that up. The thing I like about this tripod is once I get the legs out, I don't have to keep readjusting it. I can adjust it from here. So I can set it now to wherever I want it to be for my height. This little tray, which fits on the side, just slaps on there. It's magnetic on this end, so it's really handy. And I'm going to undo the box. And I'll turn it around. Can everybody see that?
Yeah, that's good.
So this has got an arm. You push the arm back, and it's got these little knobs that are really easy to tighten. And that's something important too. You don't want to be getting something that is not very stable. The good thing about Sienna is that they've been around a long time, so they really produce good equipment. It's going to last. I read a lot about these arms, because this is a constant moving. This piece here, you might want to have it on a different angle. You know, you can move it every which way you want. You can even lay it down flat. But it's something that you want to make sure you got a sturdy unit before you go out. These boxes do come with a glass plate. However, they're quite small. This is the biggest Sienna box and it's 9 by 12. And in order to clean the glass plate, you have to unscrew these 4 wooden blocks, which is just not working. So what I've done is I've gone out and bought a glass pallet that fits in the Masterson box, because personally I like a larger pallet, and this one is 12 by 16. And it fits perfectly in that box. So when I'm on the road, I can carry all my equipment and I can put my paints on here, put it in the box, seal the box, and I can leave it like that for a couple of days till I get back to the studio. If I've got oil paint on here, I'll quite often cover it with saran wrap because that'll keep the oil paints still moist. It won't dry up. It will after a few days, but if you put saran wrap on them, as long as they're not getting oxygen, they'll be fine. So that's what I use. What I normally do, I set that up right there. So it's like a little tray, a little table. And then I have one of these, which is for my mineral spirits. And it's a handy little one to have. So I can just connect that. And again, you can, you know, the equipment that's out there is very varied. Depending on what you're looking for, you can spend thousands of dollars. So this is my own little gimmick. This little tin will just fit perfectly. I just use one of those little S hooks and it hangs there, and that's where I can put my brushes. And I have an ingenious paper towel holder. So all I've done is taken a bungee cord, and there you go. I got a place for my paper towel. Okay, so I've been thinking about this for a long time. For years, I would go outdoors and I would paint, and I wouldn't have the proper equipment, and it really started bothering me. So I fine-tuned my equipment so that it's easy to carry. That's number one. You want to make sure that everything is lightweight because you may be carrying quite a bit of distance. Number two, you want to make sure that you're not carrying more than you absolutely have to. I quite often will put a big quantity of paint on my palette so that I don't have to carry the paints with me, because they are exceedingly heavy, especially the oil paints. So I put a lot of paint on the palette, and that comes with me in that Masterson box. I also have, this is just a simple one, but it's just for holding my brushes. Could I just get you to pass me a brush? One of the dry ones? Yeah.
Yeah, one of the dry ones would be good.
There you go. Thank you. So they just fit in nicely in there. You can even make these yourself. And I know I had a lady in one of my workshops that was making them, handmade, beautiful little brush holders. And that's just easy to put into my backpack. Okay. So the other thing you don't want to forget is a garbage bag. And that's really important because whatever you take in, you are responsible to take out. So when you're out in the field, you want to make sure that all of the garbage goes in here and you take it back with you when you leave. This can also be used, or even a heavier bag can be used. You can fill it with rocks. If it starts to get really windy, one of the things on my tripod, is a little hook. And I don't know if you can see that. It's right down at the bottom. It's spring loaded, so you can pull it down. And when you pull it down, I can fill this bag or another bag with rocks and attach it there, and that helps to stabilize the whole unit. Okay. let's see what it is that. Wet ones. These are great for wiping paint off your hands, or if you get some on your box and you don't want your box to be covered in paint, like mine. This bag is really great because it comes with all kinds of little pockets here. I do always carry an insect repellent, suntan lotion. I can tell you when you're standing outside that you're either going to be in the sun or the shade, and if you're in the sun, you need the hat and the suntan lotion. If you're anywhere near water, you're going to get a lot of mosquitoes and flies, and it can be quite distracting. So I always carry those items. And what else do I have? It's my little bag of goodies here. So this is something else. I don't use it a lot because I have been being outdoors so much. So I find that when I look at a scene, I know what I want to include and what I don't want to include. This little thing, the Viewfinder, is available at Opus, and it's very convenient. It'll go from a square to a rectangle. You can work it whatever way you want and just kind of get an idea of what you're going to put in your painting. I think
They're cheap. Yeah.
yeah, $10 or something, but Opus carries them. Okay. So, any questions about? Oh yeah, then I should explain to you. This slides up, and another thing to consider when you're painting outdoors, you're usually not painting large. So this one here, I think, will take almost a 20-inch or a 16-inch this way. This panel is 12 by 16. So it will hold a 16-inch. You can be as wide as you want, but it won't go much higher than that. And you really don't want to be painting outdoors with anything too big anyways. So you can move the bottom piece up as well, so that when you're painting, you got your palette here, you've got a bit of space below from where the paint is to the bottom of the canvas. These little pieces on the end of the box here, they're really important because some of the older units have little, I don't know what you'd call them.
Like a lip. Yeah.
Yeah, and what they do is they'll make it impossible for you to paint underneath. So you're always going to have a little gap there of where you can't get to your paint like that. So these are great because it's actually a piece of wood that's holding it up when you're using a panel. If I'm using a canvas that has the width on it, it's going to be a little bit different because it's going to stick out further. Okay. Panel wise, I have a variety of panels that I use. This is just, I believe this is MDF board, and I've just primed it and sanded it off in between priming. So I usually do 2 to 3 coats of primer with the sanding in between. These are really reasonable. Either the MDF board or what was the other one? The hardboard? Masonite.
It's hardboard, yeah.
Masonite. Yeah. So those are really reasonable. If you want to get into more expensive things, there are lots of products out there available. There's a company in Calgary that makes West Coast panels. They're called they're on Gator board, and they make both linen and cotton. And Delta Art Supplies carries them. Delta Art Supplies is up in Edmonton.
Very, very light.
They are. So that's my assistant tonight. So if you are going a distance, if you're one of these people that likes to backpack and go into the backcountry with all your equipment, you want to make sure that you're not carrying a lot of paint, okay? So or a lot of equipment. So those panels are excellent because they really they're super, super lightweight, and they come in different sizes and different quality. You can get cotton or the linen. You can get acrylic primed or oil primed. So whatever you choose. Yeah, and then you have to get your wet painting home. And how do you do that? Well, I used a homemade wet canvas carrier for a long time. My husband just made something up for me and it worked okay, but then eventually it just kind of fell to pieces. So I hope he doesn't watch this video. So this one here is from a company down in the States. Again, it's called Panel Pack, and that's just panel and then PAK.com. They're fantastic. They're simple. These rubber bands are made from tires. So they're reused products. And what you do is you put your wet panel, it's just a little bit of a lip like a frame. And so you can carry two panels, wet panels face to face. Or if you're just painting one, you just put a blank one in on the top, and that keeps bugs and dirt and everything else off of your wet painting. And these little rubber bands just strap back on. So really nice and handy. I try when I go outdoors to paint, I try to make sure that I'm always painting the same size. So I don't have to buy, 10 different boxes, 10 different wet panel carriers. I almost always use 12 by 16. So all of my equipment is based for 12 by 16. That seems to be the easiest for me. Some people prefer smaller. I think this one is a 9 by 12. So they do come in different sizes. They're really good little things. There are other wet panel carriers. Gorilla makes one. Sienna has something, but it won't take bigger than a 9 by 12. So you can look around. Sienna also makes boxes that have a drawer underneath that you can put your paints in if you want. And they also have ones that have wet panel carriers attached to the top. So there's all kinds of options depending on what you want. They also make one that's just a straight canvas holder up here. And then the rest of your palette will go down here on just a plain surface, like it's not a box. So there is lots of options. When I bought this unit, I went online and I looked through all kinds of videos and all kinds of information on the internet about different types of boxes, different types of easels, different types of stands, everything. And really did my homework before I went out and bought this. This is a really good unit. I've been really, really happy with it. The only thing I would do different is have one that would contain 12 by 16 palette. So there's a few companies down in the States that do make those. They're just, like I said, you've got to be dealing with your brokerage fees and taxes and duties. So it can become very expensive if you're buying from down there. So is there any questions on this part of it before I start talking about the travel?
Could you say again where the carrying things come from?
The wet canvas?
The pan, yes.
Yeah.
Just where you got those?
It's called panelpack.com. So it's
Oh, okay.
PANLPAK.com.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
he's an independent out of the States. But there are other options, but it depends on what size you're painting. For the 12 by 16, there's not a lot of options. And that's why I had to go down to the States. Okay. Any other questions about this equipment or? No?
No.
Okay. So I'm just going to look through here and see if there's anything that I missed that I was talking about. So yeah, I would say that the most important thing is weight. How far are you going to be hiking into the bush and how much do you want to carry? I have the backpack so that my hands are free. If you don't carry a backpack, you can always have a little trolley or one of those baskets that you can pull. But if your terrain is getting really bad, you're not going to be able to pull them across big rocks and things. So the backpack works really well. Most backpacks won't hold this box because it's too thick and wide. This particular backpack is made for the Sienna box. So, and I'm not sponsored by Sienna. So
That'd be nice.
Sorry, but my hearing's bad. So are you saying Sienna box? SIENNA? Or is
yeah.
it another name?
I think it's just one N.
Okay.
Yeah, it's SIENNA.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So, so I will talk about the traveling in a minute. I just want to see if there's anything else. So there's a couple other things that I normally have with me. And I don't know if I have it in here. I may not. So I normally have a palette knife in case I want to scrape off paint. I do have a little razor scraper that I can clean off my palette with as I'm going along. Just to keep it clean so that I have a clean work surface. And always have the paper towel. And I quite often will have a camera or my phone so that I can take lots of pictures. When you go and set up outside, the first thing you want to do is take a few pictures so that you can remember what the lighting was like. Because something that happens when you're painting outdoors is that the light is constantly changing. And you're going to find that, you know, where you had a shadow before, now it's in bright sunlight. So it makes you become a much faster painter, which is a good thing. You become much more spontaneous because you're trying to capture the scene that you're seeing in the moment. But you do need, if you can't remember, it's so great to have the reference of the photos, whether it's your phone or your camera, so that you can refer back and say, oh, right, that's where the shadow was at that time of the day. Because it changes very fast when you're outdoors. And that's something that takes a while to get used to. It's when I set up, I quite often will set up in the shade, and I make sure that both my canvas and my palette are either both in the shade or both in the sun. Because if your canvas is in the sun and your palette's in the shade, you can't see the colors that you're mixing here until you get them on your canvas. And likewise, if this is in the shade and my palette's in the sun, when I look at my canvas, it's going to be usually a lot brighter because I'm overcompensating for the sun that's on my palette. So try to make it shade or sun. Okay. The other thing I was going to mention, which I didn't, was using panels. If you're just using canvas, the sun can shine through. And that will be really difficult to paint. This has the box in the back, so at least I have some protection from the sun. But if I was using just a straight canvas, like gallery wrapped canvas, and I had a bigger piece on here, the sun will shine through. If it's behind me, it'll shine through your canvas, and it makes it really, really difficult to paint, to see your canvas. Okay, so that's something to bear in mind as well. Chair, you might want to take a chair or a stool. Again, just pack up the lightest that you can. I have a little one. I don't think I'll bother putting it out. It's just that's it.
Wow.
It's 1 pound. It's so light. It's one of those chairs that just, you know, like a tent with the line, the elastic line through it. So it just all goes together. There's nothing hard about it. You don't need to read the instructions. So that's another one I got from Amazon, and it's called Trekology. And I think it was like $39 or something along those lines. But it's a great little chair. It's got like a wraparound. But you do find that quite often you'll get really tired when you're standing outside. So it's kind of a good idea to bring a chair so that you can sit down. You also want to make sure that you bring lots of water, because that's really important. You're going to be staying hydrated, and preferably some snacks to take along the way. And some people have umbrellas. If you have all the money in the world, you can get umbrellas that will attach to your tripod, and they're meant for plein air painting. They're the ones that are gray, so they block out all the light that's out there. I don't use an umbrella. If it's raining, I'll quite often try to find a place to paint under a tree or under a cover someplace, or I just don't go out. So I'm pretty well a fair weather painter. And so paper towel, shop towels are the best. This is a type of shop towel. They're not quite as the paper towels that you use, all the fibers will come off if you keep rubbing on the surface of the paint. So these ones are great. The shop towels, the blue ones that you get at Canadian Tire, are really good to use as well. Quite often I'll take my sketchbook and pencils, and that's just for doing little thumbnail sketches before I start out painting. So that's something to think about. Okay. So I think if there's no questions about any of that, I will go on to the travel part. How's our time?
It's 10 after 8.
So we're okay?
Yeah, keep going.
Okay. So traveling, things to consider when you're traveling. So one of the things that I have experienced traveling, I've traveled to Europe, I've traveled to Thailand with all my paints. And the biggest thing is I cannot get mineral spirits over there. Or very difficult to get mineral spirits. So what I did before the last trip that we went to Europe, I went online and I sourced out the stores that carried art supplies. And I found a place that was within a reasonable distance to where we were staying, so I knew where I could go and get some mineral spirits. They don't necessarily have the lovely types that we have, the odorless ones. The one that I found was like a low odor mineral spirit. I don't even know if it was actually mineral spirits, because they call them all sorts of different things over there. In Thailand, I just had to use, I don't even know what it was. It might have been gasoline because it smelled awful, but it was the only thing that I could find to thin down my paints. So I do know that some of the companies now make different gels that you can buy that are, let me just grab one here quickly. Okay, I don't have it with me, but it's a gel, and is that it? Yes. Can I just, that one? Yeah. Thank you,
That's
helper.
the gambling?
Yeah.
Gambling gel?
That's Gamblin, and it's a gal kit gel, so that's ideal for your oil paints. Obviously, you don't need that if you're carrying your, if you're working in acrylics. But this one actually works really nice as a medium, but it's a gel. So it probably shouldn't go on the plane, but I don't think it's as dangerous as, well, you certainly can't carry liquids on the plane. So that's the first thing I do, is source out my mineral spirits, and also source out where you can get more paint, because you can only take so much paint with you. So about 5 years ago, I went on WestJet and I put all my paints in my suitcase that I checked in. And when I went up to go through to get for boarding, they pulled me aside and told me that I was carrying dangerous goods in my suitcase. So I stood and argued with them for a long time and said, no, they're not dangerous goods. They're artist oil paints and they're made with vegetable oil and they're not toxic. They don't have, or they pass that, what's it called, the flash.
Safety tests.
Yeah, the flash point or whatever it is for carrying on a plane. But they wouldn't have it and they basically confiscated my paints. Said if somebody didn't pick them up in an hour, they were going to throw them away. So that was something that I had to deal with, and that was about 5 years ago. Since then, they've become a lot more reasonable. So what they've done is when you look on their websites, both WestJet and Air Canada that we get out of here are pretty good about they have on their websites a full list of what they will allow on the planes. So Air Canada accepts tubes of oil-based and latex paint used by artists, provided the material is packaged in absorbent material and placed in heavy plastic leak-proof bags or containers. So they basically ask that you put them somewhere where they're not going to burst open and the paint's going to go everywhere. So what I normally do is they limit you to 37 mils per container. So again, it's the same bag, or sorry, 100 mil, sorry, 100. So it's this 1 liter bag that you're allowed to fill, and you can put as many 100 mil containers as you want. So I can usually get about 10 tubes of paint in here quite easily.
That's it?
Yeah, 10 or 12. Yeah. So that is what you can take in your carry-on. You're allowed to take it in your carry-on now, and you're allowed to take it into your check bag as well. So they just have to be smaller than 100 mil. And I think those are 37, aren't they?
This one's 40, so this,
Okay.
that size is 40 milliliters.
So that's 40. And the big ones are usually
There's
150.
37.
Yeah. So I can get about 10 in there. Okay. So that's just a little indication of how they fit in the bag. Again, you should maybe put them in a cardboard box or something that's not easy to break, especially with oil paints, because the tubes are metal. So they quite often, if they're banging around, they can very easily pierce the other tube and the paint will leak out everywhere. So make sure that you have them in plastic so that they don't get all over your clothes. Yeah, so things have changed a bit with that. Also very difficult to get canvases over there. We were down in the Algarve in Portugal and trying to find places that carried the paints that I wanted. That was almost impossible to find. The mineral spirits was really hard to find. The canvases were hit and miss. So some places had some panels, some had cotton canvas, gallery kind of wrapped canvas, but I didn't know about the quality. I didn't know about, if they were going to be good enough for what I was working on, if I needed to prime them first. So what I normally do is I normally take a pack of 12 canvases with me. And if I can just get that one canvas again. Thank you. So these little guys are super lightweight. So this is again the West Coast canvas that's sold at Delta Art Supplies. And that probably weighs less than an ounce.
Oh, it's feather light.
Yeah.
Feather light.
Like you could hold that up with one finger. So I will take 12 of these, put them in my suitcase, and they're not interfering with my weight limit on my suitcase. And at the end, when I go to come back home, I will buy those tiny little spacers that you put into glass, and I will just stack them on top of each other. So the spacer, where the spacer is, the paint may come off a bit, and now I'm talking about oil paint. But you just have 4 dots that you might have to touch up when you get home. So I stack them all together and I wrap a big band or a string or something around them so they stay put, they don't move. And I put them right back into my suitcase, and that's how I take them home. Okay. So it's a good way to get them home. You can also, if you're going to be over there for some time and the paintings are fairly dry, or even with the spacers, the way I said to stack them, you can put them in a shipping box and ship them home. And then you're not carrying them home on the plane. So if you know that you're going to be doing that, then you could try to find a place that's going to have those boxes and all the equipment that you need to package it up. Okay. So okay. And then of course you just have your paints. I try to limit the amount of paint or the different tubes of paint that I bring. So I make a very limited palette when I travel. Just the least amount of colors that I need. I usually take 2 or 3 tubes of white because I use a lot of white. Okay, any questions about that? For cleanup, when I'm cleaning my brushes, I use dish soap. So I can bring a little container of dish soap with me wherever I go. And I just, because it's so concentrated, you just put a little bit in your hand with the oil brush and just rub your brush back and forth a few times, and it's going to clean your brushes. So you don't need anything toxic to clean your brushes. And that's great, and that's something you can buy in other countries without a problem. So. Okay.
And do you ever have any issues bringing your paintings back into the country? Like somebody, I think it was Dennis Weber said to me one time that he didn't quite complete his paintings and never signed them. Otherwise, he had to pay duty bringing them back in to the country from the States. He used to go down in the States. Yeah.
The state, that's a whole different matter. The trying to ship to the States and trying to enter shows in the States becomes a really, really hard process. You really need to do a lot of research online. I had no problems at all from Europe or from Thailand. I have painted down in the States and brought them back. I think their biggest concern is if you're leaving them down there and selling them, then they want to know about it. But I think if you're just painting as you go, as just a hobby, then you can bring them back. I never had any problem bringing them back into Canada.
Yeah. Okay.
But that's absolutely something that you should be checking out before you go, especially to the States, because I know that's a huge issue down there.
Okay, thanks.
Or especially since you're famous now, Anne.
What's that?
I said, especially since she's famous now, Anne, she might have a harder time.
Yeah, but not for my
to
art.
look you up.
Okay.
Good.
Nothing else? So,
Switch over?
yeah, why don't we do that?
Okay,
I can just leave this.
this is just going to take me a minute to switch the camera angles and for Anne to get organized at her easel, and then we'll get the demo started. Okay, so I'm going to wait till you stand there, and then I'll move it in as tight as you can tolerate. All righty. Well, we're literally looking over her shoulder here. And I'm also going to switch to a different view. And I want you guys to be truly impressed because this took quite a lot of technical research.
Yay, Kit. Way to go.
So in the large rectangle on the left, we've got her canvas. You'll see her working at her palette in the top right. And then the reference image is the lower right. Can you guys see that? Michelle's nodding, so that's good. Okay.
I think they're all muted.
Yeah, they're all muted. That's okay. Let's just play. Is that still okay for you? Yep. Great. Okay. There we go, guys. So where is this reference image? Where did you take this photograph?
So this is up by Maple Lake. So it's going up the back roads from Lumbee and up towards Maple Lake. And this is along the river that's up there. You can sort of drive off one of the little roads and find this little spot. It's kind of dead ends. It doesn't go anywhere. So there was a lot of old barns up there. It's beautiful country.
Do you want to, just while you're starting there, do you want to just go over what colors are on your palette?
Sure. I have titanium white. This was just a little extra I had, but that's cad yellow medium, cad orange, yellow ochre, cad red light, alizarin crimson, ultramarine blue, cobalt blue, viridian, transparent red oxide, and this one is,
Looks like a purple.
yeah, it is. It's a mineral violet. So the first thing I do when I'm working on a painting is place my image on the canvas. Decide what I'm going to leave in, what I'm going to put out.
Is that with oil or acrylic?
No, this is oil paint. So I'm using mineral spirits to thin it down, so it's more of a wash at this point.
Okay, thanks.
So Anne, when you're out in painting in the field, how long does it take you to do a painting? And do you work on it at all in the studio afterwards?
It depends. If I'm in a competition, then I have to finish it out in the field. Sometimes I do finish, sometimes I take it back and work on it in the studio. But typically, like I was just in the Stevenson plein air event last weekend, and we had 3.5 hours to paint. And then we had to turn in our paintings at that point. So you had to stop painting, get it all framed, and take it to the meeting point. And that was 3 hours after we started. 3.5 hours, sorry. But the nice
Is
thing,
that a bit rushed for you? Like, would you normally require more than that?
no, not for this size. If I was working bigger, absolutely. but not for this size. And quite often, these are just little studies. So they're great to use for references for doing bigger paintings in the studio when you get back. So all I'm doing here is I'm kind of blocking in the big shapes and a little bit of information about the values, where my darkest darks are. My horizon's crooked.
What happens when you're painting slightly from the side like that, eh? It's hard to get the horizon straight.
And that's why it's really important to stand back from your painting from time to make sure that things aren't crooked. Very, very important.
Of course, the camera angle is crooked too, so you can just blame that.
So I'm just starting to, again, I'm just filling in the information that I need in my painting. Just getting more and more variations in the values and just trying to make sure that everything's working before I put too much into it. I kind of like to do a little bit of an underpainting like this, and then I'll go in and put thick paint on top. So this is still really thin paint in a lot of places. It's not a thick paint at this point. And I can tell you that the color that's on your palette isn't always the same as the color that goes on your canvas. So sometimes I need to just adjust it a little.
When we were setting up, Anne and I were trying to strike a balance between the light, how much light was on her palette. Because if there's the normal amount of light on her palette, the camera was not picking anything up except glare from the glass. So she's working under slightly different circumstances. We've decreased the amount of light on her palette so you guys could see it. So yeah, there's going to be a
So
few
it's-
little blips along the way.
Yeah, that's probably exactly why it's changing on you, right?
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah, it's actually quite different there. Kind of seeing that light.
Do you want me to put the light back on the way it was before?
That's okay. Just bear that in mind if I'm doing 3 and 4 runs on one color.
There we go. That should be a bit
Oh,
better.
okay.
I don't think it's going to make much difference to.
No?
No, actually, it looks okay. There's a bit of a blind spot, but that's.
And I can see that the values aren't quite strong enough, so maybe more.
What's your favorite time of the day to go out painting if you're doing plein air?
I think definitely not in the middle of the day. The middle of the day is usually the hottest. And so it's a little bit more difficult to stay out there if it's really hot. If it's a cloudy day, it's good anytime. Otherwise, to capture the best light, I mean, morning and night, those golden hours, that's probably the best time to go out. If it's a nice day, yeah, I like to go out earlier in the morning so it's not so hot. That's good to go.
Can you tell us something about your Houston experience while you're painting?
Yeah, I can. So I was involved in the Steveson plein air event down in Richmond 2 weekends ago. And the plein air event's been going on for about probably 15, 16 years. It's put on by Phoenix Art Workshops down there, and it's Mark Graff is the fellow's name, and he's been doing it for years. And it's all run by the volunteers. It's an absolutely amazing plein air event. So they have all the different booths set up for the painters. And this year, I think there was close to 100, I believe, different painters. So quite a good selection. There was a youth category, there was a master category, and an adult open category. And so we all gathered at 9 o'clock in the morning. We did not know where we were going to paint. So when we got there, they told us, you're going to be painting at such and such a spot. And then we would have to make our way down to that spot by ourselves with all of our equipment and set up. So not knowing where you're going to paint, you didn't know, whether it was going to be a rural scene or something from in town. And so we just went down to our spots. There was 3 of us where I painted, which was down by the river, which was ideal for me because I don't like to do buildings and boats and people. I like to do rural scenes. So we got down there and set up, and we had about probably the first 2 hours, which is beautiful. And then the rain came, and it absolutely poured with rain. It was very, very miserable. And we had the tents to get under, but basically we had to take all our paintings back to the, sorry, trying to paint and think and talk at the same time sometimes gets me. So we had to go back to the setup point and turn in our paintings, and all the paintings were put up for display for 2 hours. and they had a jury come in and jury all the paintings, and then they gave out awards. And by that point, it was like a monsoon, and the wind had picked up, and it was bitterly cold and very wet, and all the paintings were getting wet. But you know what? It was still an amazing event. And I think people just really enjoyed being able to get out again. So it was kind of nice. It was really well attended. Lots of, like, the people in Richmond know this event really well. So you know, and Stevenson, so they come out. There's a lot of really, really good artists that paint there. A lot from the Federation as well. So it was fun. And at the end of it all, they put the paintings up for sale, and mine sold. So I was happy.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I hope you took a picture of it before you sold it.
No,
Oh, no.
I totally forgot. My brother did though, so
Oh,
I
good.
get it from him.
So which category were you in, Anne?
Masters. I hate that, but there you go. I don't like titles like that, but that was what I was told to do, so I do as I'm told.
Oh,
So is it an open paint, or you have to be juried just to paint?
No, you just sign up.
Sounds like so much fun.
Oh, it is.
And not the rain part.
Oh, the rain is not fun, but the rest of it is a lot of fun. And you know, it's all people that I know from the Federation, and just from having painted down on the coast, I run into so many people I know. So it's always a good time. It's like this retreat, you know, there's going to be a lot of people that we know that are there. And you know, when you're all like-minded and you're all outdoors and you're all trying to do the best you can in the time limited, and you know, it just there's a lot of camaraderie that goes on.
Hopefully some wine drinking.
Oh, absolutely. I'm taking less paint and more wine.
Okay, well, sounds good.
How long did you paint? Like, what did they give you?
3.5 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's timed, so you have to be back in time and turn in your painting, otherwise you don't qualify. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just kind of adjusting my values.
I don't know if you can see it very well on the video or the palette, but she's using much thicker paint now.
Yeah, much thicker. And I'm negative space painting. If anybody wants to look that up, that's something I'm known for, is negative space. Well, Kit is too. Kit does a lot of that.
I think a lot of artists do that, you know, the negative painting.
Yeah. People will ask me, you know, do I paint the sky first and then fill in the rest? And the answer is no. The sky is usually, for me, is usually the last thing to go in. And that's mainly because I'm the negative space painter. So I will go in afterwards, and I'll be able to just work on that around the trees and around whatever's back there, the mountain, and just go in and basically fill it all in around whatever's there, the objects that are there. There's another tree there. I have to put another tree in. I forgot about it. Not that you have to anyways. You just do whatever you want when you're painting, basically. And that's the nice thing about plein air, you know, if I'm standing in front of, you know, a scene and there's a fire hydrant in front of me, I don't have to put in that fire hydrant. But I won't. I'll leave it out. So
Can I ask a really naive question? So you have really long brushes, but look how you're holding it. You always use the really long brushes for a weight thing, or what? You know, if you were standing back and painting, but that's not how you're doing it.
no, but sometimes I do this kind of thing. And the short brushes, can you see me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the
Yeah.
short brushes end here.
And so yeah, you lose your
So my
Uh,
hand would
stability.
stop. Yeah. So,
Gotcha. Okay.
so having the longer brush, I can hold it however I want. It's not going to get, it's not going to fall off the end of my hand there. Because I do have.
Well, you know,
Sorry?
as a self-taught person, I always thought the long ones for the oil painters. I don't have any long ones. Interesting. I don't know.
There's sometimes a difference in the bristles too. Sometimes certain types of brushes with, you know, certain type of bristles only come in long handle or short handle. So the watercolor
Mhm.
painters, the ones that are intended more for watercolor painting tend to be the short handled ones. The ones for acrylic and oil tend to be the long handled ones. So, and you just learn to hold them.
Yeah. Yeah, you do.
Mhm.
You know,
And I started in watercolor, so I guess that's why I stuck there. Maybe I won't be stuck.
well, and sometimes I use, you know, sometimes I'll have them further away, but I'm also working on a smaller painting with the camera very close. So
Mm.
for me right now, this is probably the easiest way to do it.
Mhm. Thank you.
So are those colors that you've got in your palette ones that you use pretty regularly, or are there other colors that you add in there depending on the picture?
No, this is pretty well my standard palette.
Oh, okay.
I don't add anything else. And when I first started out, I had very few. In the past few years, I've added a few more colors, only because it's for me, it's you know, I'm getting used to what each color does with a mix, and that's kind of the important thing, is that if you're you know, if you're putting out too many colors on your palette and you can't remember how you got a certain color mixed, you know, then it's so much easier just to cut back and do a smaller palette or a limited palette. I'm going to put in some color in this guy. One of the things I would really encourage is try and keep a clean palette. I have great difficulty with that because I'm a very messy person. But so much easier to not have it cross-contaminate the colors, especially when you're working into the light colors.
But you're picking up some of the color from your painting though, too, eh?
Yeah, it is picking it up a bit. Which in some cases is okay, but when it's the sky, you kind of want it to be a bit cleaner, so.
So Anne, we're getting down to about 3 minutes to 9.
Okay,
So
wow, all right,
yeah, I know.
okay. So I will finish this. But it won't be for a while now because I'm gonna be away. I'm leaving tomorrow to go camping and then, but I will post it or I'll send it to Kit.
If you send it to me, I can get it sent out to people, as
Okay.
well as, of course, I'll be putting this up on our YouTube channel, so I'll be able to post it there as well.
Is that something that anybody can see?
Yes, our YouTube channel in Central Okanagan FCA is available to anybody. Anybody can take a look at it. We do have a couple of videos which are available only by a link. Laurie Costa's presentation on responding to art is only available to people who sign up for the mentorship program. But generally speaking, the presentations from the meetings that we've had are available to anybody. So they can Google Ann Willsie, and this should pop up on their YouTube feed.
Okay.
As well, of course, there's links to our YouTube channel from our website. So if you haven't gone over there and browsed, we're actually getting a decent little selection of videos on there now.
Really, on the YouTube channel?
Yeah,
Okay.
on the chapter's YouTube channel.
Just trying to do enough that you can see where I'm going with it. Does anybody have any questions about what the heck I'm doing? Have you all fallen asleep?
No, we still got 20 people out there. That's pretty good.
Well, I guess
I'm
it's-
watching.
Looking
I'm
good.
watching you, Anne.
We're watching.
Yes, we are.
Well, I'm so glad you're still awake. Thank you.
Silly.
So I think what I'd like to do is, you could stand away. I'll come in here a little bit tighter with the camera.
Oh, yeah, you can't
Just a
really.
second,
Oh, my gosh.
and they'll be able to see the
Wow.
a little bit better. Yeah, just tip it forward slightly. Perfect.
Wow.
So that's where she's at now, but she'll be showing it to us later when it's got more on it.
Hopefully. Yeah, so I guess that's it. That's all I've got time to do tonight, unfortunately. So, but I hope that gives you a little bit of an idea of when I look at a scene, what do I see and what's important to me? What do I leave out? What do I put in? You know, how do I change it from the original photo maybe? So I hope that's been a bit of a help to you.
Thank you so much.
It's been really
Thank you so
interesting
much,
too,
Anne.
seeing your gear for plein air.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
Kit,
we got two demos tonight, essentially.
That's right. We got a twofer.
2 for 1. Does anyone have any questions for Anne?
I aim to please, you know. Yeah, any
No
questions?
que-
Lucky to
No
have you.
questions, but she sure makes it look so easy. But it's not.
it's not easy, but she makes it look so easy. Wow.
No, it's always a struggle. Sometimes they come right off the bat, but most of the time it's just really hard work, right?
Practice makes perfect.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much, Anne. Well, thanks so much too for everyone for joining in tonight. That's going to wrap up our first fall meeting. So be sure to tune in again in a month's time here. And as discussed, be sure to share the sunshine out there. Stop by, Michelle, where was it on Wednesday?
Fat burgers.
Fat Burgers, okay.
Yeah. Fat burgers, not, Gordon and 97th, the Highway 97.
All
Yeah.
right, okay, perfect. Well, we'll be there. And yeah, thanks so much for tuning in, everybody. Have a great night and happy painting.
Thanks,
Thanks.
Anne. That was
Bye.
great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anne.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you for
Bye.
having
Thanks,
me.
Sam.